Imagine this. You're having a normal day-to-day conversation, but instead of actually focusing on the topic, you're thinking about the way your voice sounds. If it's too loud, too soft, too high, too low. At times, people ask me why I have such little friends or why I hate being noticed. The thing is, I wasn't always like that. I used to be this loud, carefree person who loved the spotlight. But a few years ago, I felt everything about me starting to change. I began overthinking everything I did. But I thought it was just life hitting me because everyone around me was acting somewhat like that. They worried about how they looked like, they cared about what others thought of them, and they felt embarrassed over small things too. But sooner or later, I realized I was different. Horrifying headaches plagued me every day. The smallest things would make me easily overwhelmed, and I would wake up randomly at night feeling absolutely breathless. I couldn't even order my own food because I was always so afraid that people would judge my portions or choices. I basically couldn't talk to people, which I once enjoyed doing. So at the age of 11, I had a mental illness. In Singapore, 1 in 7 people suffer from a mental disorder. This means that we'll possibly know someone who has a mental illness, or perhaps we are that person. Additionally, 1 in 15 people suffer from the major depression disorder, and 1 in 288 people have the obsessive compulsive disorder in Singapore. Pretty surprising, huh? Despite these seemingly large numbers, 2/3 of people who are diagnosed do not seek professional help. But why? In my opinion, there are 3 main factors: fear, ignorance, and being uninformed. So essentially what that means is that people are either too scared to seek help, they don't know how to seek help, or they don't even know that they need the help in the first place. Mental disorders are behavioral or mental patterns that cause extreme distress or impairment to personal functioning. Mental illnesses are more prevalent than ever in teens. Suicide is the second leading cause of death for ages 10 to 24. More teenagers and young adults die from suicide than from cancer, heart disease, AIDS, birth defects, strokes, pneumonia, influenza, and chronic lung disease combined. With these statistics, the world has begun acknowledging this issue, but little or nothing is done to support those who are suffering. Most of the time, we don't know what to do when we're suffering from physical harm, like when we get a paper cut, we put a Band-Aid. When we break our bone, we get a cast. But when it comes to mental illnesses, what exactly is our first aid kit? It does not exist. Maybe it's because we never thought or talked about it, especially in Asian culture. You tell your parents that you're sad and they get you your favorite fruit as a consolation. I remember my sister came back home after a year from being away, and my parents told her I had lost 5 kilograms in the past month. She was shocked. She told me that's the amount of weight a cancer patient undergoing chemotherapy loses. I was not on a very strict diet, but rather I just didn't consume anything. I completely lost my appetite. That's when I told her how I felt after making her promise that she wouldn't tell my parents. I thought they'd never understand. A week later, my dad took me out for a walk and, for the first time, asked me if I was mentally okay. A lot of emotions started gushing out of me. The anger that he never bothered to ask before, the confusion as to why he was asking now, and the vulnerability I felt because I was always so alone. But as we started talking, I realized he had his own problems too. No one asked him about his struggles either. Sometimes we get so caught up in our own battles that we forget to check up on our loved ones. So I started opening up to him. What I'm trying to say is that people can surprise you sometimes. It's important to open up to someone, be it a family member, a teacher, a school counselor, or a best friend, so that you don't have to go through this process alone. A few days after my parents found out, they suggested I seek professional help. After a bit of researching, I realized we found out that we can go to any clinic and get a referral letter to the specialist. So that's what we did. I went to the clinic near my house, got a referral letter, and came back home. My sister was searching out places we could book an appointment. I remember purposely misplacing the first referral letter. I was just too scared. So we went to the clinic again, got a letter again, and I still didn't use it. This cycle repeated about 3 to 4 times, and I still never went. I was too overwhelmed. The thought of me stepping into that room made it all so real. Like, I do have a mental condition, and I do need help. For an 11-year-old, that's a lot to take in. But having gone through that experience, I always look back and wonder, what was it that I was embarrassed about? I came to the realization that it was just about what others thought. These others started mattering more to me than myself. I read about how mental illnesses were seen. People thought that when someone has anxiety, therapy can fix everything. Depression was not even seen as an illness, and mental illnesses made one weak. Firstly, a mental disorder can hardly ever be fixed. Its effects can only be limited. Therapy isn't the only way that every person can feel better. Some people have to take medications, while others just have to rely on their persistence and patience. Some people say depression is not even a real illness. It's just a bunch of people that are sad and aren't trying to feel any better. That's exactly like telling someone with myopia that they can't see clearly just because they're not trying hard enough. It doesn't make any sense. So if you're a teenager and you're still not comfortable talking to your parents, it's completely okay. Talk to your school counselor for assistance. There's always a way. First, and having gone through that experience, I do think seeking professional help is the most viable solution. Even though it is possible to battle some mental illnesses without professional help, it will definitely take way longer. It took 4 long years, but there are things I'm better at now. I'm able to sleep more peacefully at night, the consistency of my headaches has dropped, and I like to believe I'm a little better at communicating with people. If there's one thing I hope you've taken away from this speech, is that having a mental illness is not a taboo. Standing here today, I hope to instill a little bit of courage in the hearts of those who are too afraid to accept that they're mentally ill or those who feel stranded. You are not alone. Thank you.